Folk Report.
Tonight, a shocking new warning about house prices after the government's bungling. And the ABC scandals, they deepen with a liar exposed and even Labor ministers now turning on the national broadcaster. Plus the amazing lies of the youngest black professor appointed by Cambridge and the dangerous rise of another anti-Israel socialist politician in the US. Plenty more coming up, including Matt Canavan. But first, Australia's being destroyed by the new tribalism and by turning us back on reason. Or to put it more simply, we're getting more stupid and divided. First, a small example to start with, but it's a telling one. The reaction here to news that one of Elon Musk's SpaceX rockets is going to hit the moon tonight. Oh no, says our Space Technology and Industry Institute. It's at the Swinburne University of Technology. Will someone please think of the Aborigines?
The moon is something that's fascinated us. You know, it's deeply rooted to Indigenous, sky country and storytelling. And so we want to respect the fact that this is not just something for us to go and explore.
It's just getting too much, isn't it? I mean, there's a limitation that we've got to keep in mind as we explore space. You know, is the moon now also the traditional land of some Aboriginal tribe? Which brings me to the latest trial in that game. Back in 1835, John Batman famously met 8 elders of the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung peoples and made what he thought was a deal to buy the site of what became Melbourne in exchange for things like blankets, knives, tomahawks, mirrors, flour, things like that. Activists now insist that Batman took advantage of the elders. Maybe they were right. Or they say the elders just thought he was paying tribute, not actually buying their land. Whatever. Here is the earliest picture of that deal. Batman with the Aboriginal elders. Unmistakably Aboriginal elders. This was painted some 50 years after the event. Well, yesterday, the Federal Court held its first case management hearing on a massive claim to Melbourne's public lands by people who now identify as Aborigines and claim to be the traditional owners of the land that Batman thought he'd bought nearly 2 centuries ago. Got to say that hearing did not go well. This massive land claim over not just Melbourne, but the land between nearly Daylesford to Warragul is contested by people of no fewer than 4 other tribes, all saying the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung were trying to claim some of their own land. Anyway, it's been sent away for mediation before it can go further. But, you know, it's no wonder there is a feeding frenzy here, because this single claim includes having a say over, for instance, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, Government House, Melbourne Zoo, and more than 200 parks and gardens. And that's just in the city of Melbourne alone. And that includes, of course, the Botanic Gardens and, you know, the Royal Park. So this has turned into a lawyer's picnic that's costing heaven knows what in legal fees. And most of that, I am certain, will be paid by taxpayers. I mean, just listen to this from the Herald Sun report. The courtroom was full to the brim with barristers representing Indigenous corporations, the state and Commonwealth, commercial fishing interests, utility giant AusNet, and nearly 20 local councils in the chamber and online. What a circus. So, who are the Aborigines behind this grab for so much public land nearly 200 years later, giving them influence over water resources, how parks and reserves are managed, how fire reduction burns are done? Well, they claim to be descendants of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung, totalling at most 1,500 people. But how strong is their connection to the land, to Aboriginal ways and traditions? And how different are they really to the rest of us? That they've got to have this, you know, superior claim to what I'd consider the land of all Australians. And when I checked, of course, I left again with the thought that, seriously, this racial division is not just dangerous and insulting, but increasingly simply preposterous. The Wurundjeri Woiwurrung are represented in this case by 11 claimants, of whom 4 are most often quoted in the media. There's Perry Wandin, a cultural heritage officer, Aboriginal bureaucrat, Di Kerr, who was inducted into the Victorian Aboriginal Honour Roll, and this law graduate.
It's important to us that we have a say in the lands and waters that we have been caring for generations. And obviously this is an incredibly proud moment for our mob. And it's about that recognition.
The fourth of these Aborigines is Andrew Gardner, now better known as Hassan Gardner, with his wife next to him there. And yes, he is Muslim, although he seems to me to be trying to have it a bit both ways.
I'm humbled to be here tonight to do the Welcome to Country as a Wurundjeri elder, but also as a Muslim. The similarities between Aboriginal spirituality and Islamic practice is there's one creator spirit. There's separate men's and women's business. There's family traditions around country and marriage and ceremony. And there's respect for elders as knowledge holders and cultural authority.
And then there are the other claimants who include Margaret Parisi, the First Nations Garden City Ambassador for the City of Melbourne, Michelle Mills, who does cultural tours, and Daniel Ross, who does Welcomes to the Country, and Kathleen Terrick of Victoria's First Peoples Assembly. Let me stress that I am not, do not read between the lines, any future judge, saying that these people do not have some Aboriginal ancestry. I am not saying they have no right to call themselves Aboriginal under the present official definitions. I mean, knock themselves out, go your hardest. I'm just wondering how different these people really are from the rest of us. Now, yes, almost all have Aboriginal jobs, but can their spiritual connection to Melbourne really be so much deeper that they have a greater right to Melbourne's public lands than the 5 million non-Wurundjeri who live there too and love it, many born here? And I just say enough, please, please, enough. To me, it's no wonder that so many Australians are turning to One Nation when we have this. Let Australia's public lands be owned by all Australians. Race, totally irrelevant. Isn't that our best future? The ABC is today facing two scandals, not just the Gina Rinehart one, which I have to say just got even worse for the national broadcaster. I'll get into that soon. But the latest one involves Mahmoud Fazal, a former underworld figure that the ABC hired as a reporter for some bizarre reason and then had to fire, quelle surprise, for unethical behaviour. Last night, the ABC's Media Watch revealed, and good on them, revealed that Fazal had also hired a friend to pretend to be a drug dealer for reports on the ABC's Four Corners and a background briefing. This friend.
I realised that working in the corporate world and cocaine really works well together. I just see dollars, dollars, dollars.
And that friend has now admitted she isn't a drug dealer. She was just paid to pretend.
Played a role that they needed. You know, when like people need roles played in certain docos and that, and there's people who look the part that can fill it. Yeah, that's what was happening. I earned a nice paycheck off that, a very nice one. So yeah, those things aren't always accurate and as real as you think they are.
Guess who paid that nice paycheck? That's 3 strikes now, by the way, for the ABC's Four Corners. Before this, it added 6 gunshots to footage from Afghanistan to make it seem that Australian soldier Heston Russell was firing at unarmed Afghans.
Then, the single warning shot becomes 6.
Good expose there by Channel 7. And ABC Four Corners reporter Louise Milligan headed the witch hunt, which eventually saw Cardinal George Pell jailed on plainly false charges of raping 2 boys at once in a busy cathedral. Until, of course, the High Court unanimously freed Pell. So there's something very wrong at Four Corners, but also with the wider ABC. In fact, today the ABC came under even more intense pressure on the other big scandal it is battling. It's now more than 2 weeks since I broke the story about how the ABC violently abused mining billionaire Gina Rinehart by screening this short film. Now, the filmmaker eventually issued a partial apology, yet the ABC management still refuses to. Yeah, it even first defended that segment, defended it from the top, and eventually said it won't be commenting further while its ombudsman takes a second look, as if Chairman Kim Williams and Managing Director Hugh Marks, as I said yesterday, as if these two guys still need an expert to tell them that talking about sodomising a woman with a stick is actually bad. Well, today they heard that for free from two more ministers of the Labor right. The left wing of the Albanese government, they're still silent. Shame on them. But at least Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles and Employment Minister Amanda Rishworth both said the ABC bosses refused to, that this film was sick and must be removed from the ABC website.
The ABC has its editorial independence. We respect that, but we do think that it is appropriate that the ABC has referred this to the Ombudsman, and I'm surprised that this video is still on its site.
Are you calling for it to be removed?
Well, I'm surprised that it's there. This is, as the video has been described to me, it is utterly unacceptable.
I have not seen it, and it is also only been described to me. I just echo the words of the Acting Prime Minister that from what's been described to me, it is unacceptable. I think we do need to demonstrate respect for women.
Still, lack of curiosity not to go and check it out. I mean, this is a scandal. This is a national broadcaster, 1.2 billion of our money. But that is now 5 Albanese ministers of the Labor right who have criticised that ABC film. Like I said, not one of Anthony Albanese's Labor left faction, including himself, have done so. Not that I have heard. They're still putting their tribe above any principle. Joining me is our Tuesday regular, Senator Matt Canavan, now the leader of the Federal Nationals, of course. Matt Canavan, great to see you. Look, 5 Labor ministers say that film was wrong. The filmmaker has apologised, yet the ABC to this day refuses to. What does that tell you?
Well, my patience with the ABC is running out, Andrew. It's been a bit late for the Labor ministers to come out. Myself and other Liberal and National members of Parliament were criticising this last week. It's just so vile to hear that broadcast on our national broadcaster. I just don't see how in any way you have to refer this to an ombudsman. It is sick, it is vile, and it should have no place on a national TV, nonetheless on our publicly funded broadcaster. The management of the ABC should be accountable. They should make decisions. That's what they're paid to do. This should be removed from the website. There should be a full and frank apology to both the Australian people who fund the ABC and to Ms Rinehart in particular. No one deserves to be threatened or joked about in this sort of way. It's absolutely reprehensible. And look, honestly, if the ABC can't do that, well, the government should be sacking the management of the ABC because this is just a basic test of decency. It is absolutely unbelievable that no action's been taken. What are we, a week or so on from this? What the hell is the ABC waiting for?
2 weeks, actually. Look, I have to say, I agree with you on the sacking, because if someone there now clearly is refusing to see that this is unacceptable and must be removed instantly and apologised for, that person is not fit to be trusted with judgments on ABC standards. They have got to go. It has got to that point. They can't say, oh, I didn't know. They have known for a couple of weeks and yet they still defend it. Got to go. Is that not the case?
It's just basic decency, Andrew. I mean, if you can't hold basic standards up, that should be, I mean, I just can't even believe we're having a discussion or debate about this.
No.
As soon as you see it and hear it, as you just played again, just make a decision, guys. Just do it. Do your job. You don't need to refer this to an ombudsman. Action needs to be taken.
Yeah, and a head needs to roll, at least one, probably more. Matt Canavan, can you just tell me why the coalition has never said that the ABC should be privatised, turned into a subscription service like News24? Why am I and every taxpayer forced to fund it when, as you know, it's turned into a fortress of the left, when it by charter should be impartial? I think it's unreformable. Why haven't you said turn it into a subscription service? You want it? Pay for it.
Well, I'm not sure how it could be privatised. It costs money, so I don't know who would pay for it. In terms of subscription service, look, there are aspects of the ABC that are very important here in Rockhampton, Central Queensland. They're great journalists and they do a good job covering local news. It's become more important as commercial news organisations have shrunk. Given economic circumstances, I'd love them to be better and better resourced. I don't think they get enough resources, but that's important. I suppose, Andrew, I'm sympathetic to the opposite approach. I think we need more Australian news going to Australian households, and why not have News24 now, as it's known, available to all Australian households on an equal footing as the ABC, and then people can have their choice. Now, some of us in Rockhampton, say, or in regional areas can do that. Thankfully, your show and others are on free-to-air TV, but that's not the case in the metropolitan areas. So why shouldn't it be equal across the country?
Well, all right, hive off the country branch, fund that, but the rest make it a subscription service. They say they're the most trusted brand in news. I don't believe it, but let them put their money where their mouth is, or someone else's money where their mouth is. Two polls today, Matt, in Victoria. Good news for the coalition down there. Both show about the same support for the three leading parties, although Labor's going in different directions. Redbridge poll, support for the coalition now to 30% after Labor dumped its premier. Labor down to 23%. One Nation down a lot to 22%. Freshwater also coalition 30%. Labor up since the leadership change to 25%. And again, One Nation down to 22%. What should the coalition take from that? And I mean not just about Victoria, but federally.
Yeah, look, well, Andrew, I think we can all take from this the fact that the polls are very volatile right now, and you probably shouldn't read too much into one poll. I think sometimes there's a fairly reflexive response to individual polls. When we're so long from, say, the next federal election in terms of federal implications, things can change quickly, as they have over the past year. The other lesson here, I think, is as people get close to an election in Victoria where I clearly think most Victorians want change, want a new government, then understandably the focus will turn to, well, who's going to be that alternative government? Who will be the alternative premier? Who's going to make up the alternative cabinet? And I've got to give credit to Jess Wilson and Danny O'Brien, the Liberals and Nationals. They've been working very hard for the past year or so. Jess has covered every seat through Victoria, and I think showing that she's got what it takes to lead that state. So the lesson for us is the same. We've got to work very hard. I was out travelling all through regional Queensland with Angus Taylor last week. We've got to have a detailed plan, which we were selling last week, to lower taxes, lower energy prices and have less migration to improve Australia's living standards, show that we can manage the show better. And as people turn to that decision about who should be the next government of Australia, well, we'll put ourselves in the best position if we do those things.
Keep your head and grind it out, absolutely. Matt Canavan, thank you so much for your time. Last night, by the way, I was talking about the housing crisis. The news just got worse on that front. You know, house prices have been falling in nearly every capital city except Darwin. In Melbourne and Sydney by more than 4%. The NAB predicted that this would be a result of the government's budget, cutting negative gearing, the capital gains tax discount. It's now issued another warning. I think it's frightening. Listen to this. We see prices across the 8 capital cities declining 5% over this year. It had thought 2%, led by about 10% declines in Sydney and Melbourne. 10% falls in house prices there. This government has got a real crisis on its hands, and I think it's going to need to do something very, very fast to fix that. After the break, Anthony Albanese Meanwhile, not surprisingly, blasted by his former economics advisor. And in the US, the rise of a new Israel-hating socialist politician that shows something very dangerous is happening on the left there as well. The rise of socialism, real socialism in the West, is now quite frightening. I mean, here we've got a socialist left Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, whose former economics advisor, Alex Sanchez, has just given Albanese a blast for keeping taxes too high and spending too much, wasting money, propping up pet industries, and now belting investors with its changes to capital gains tax rules. It's quite the spray. He even said of the Albanese government, sometimes you sort of think you could be with the Greens at times. So there's a problem there. But this creeping socialism is getting especially frightening in America, of all places, with real socialists being pre-selected for the Democratic Party for the next election for Congress, particularly in New York. You got people there sharing a real hatred for Israel as well. And now the latest of them, the hot favourite to win the Democratic nomination tonight in Michigan for the US Senate, the Muslim son of Egyptian immigrants, Abdul El-Sayed.
The biggest danger to capitalism was never government regulation, it was monopoly. So I want to break up the biggest companies.
And like I said, it's an Israel hater falsely accusing it of genocide and apartheid and demanding an end to US military aid.
And where does that go? To a foreign government that's done genocide and apartheid, and now is taking us to a war for the goal of annexing southern Lebanon.
I was joined earlier by Sean Spicer, Donald Trump's first White House press secretary. Sean Spicer, always great to talk to you. Look, you know, we've talked before about the rise of socialism in America. It's just quite frightening to me. But now we have this vote overnight, our time, to become the Democrat nominee to be the next senator for Michigan. Now, the front runner is the anti-Israel, hard-left Muslim Abdul El-Sayed. What is at stake here?
Well, it's so interesting. You wonder why people in Australia might care about this, and I'll tell you why. Because they've had some success, these Democrat Socialists of America, DSA candidates, in niche places, New York City and just outside of Boulder, Colorado, enclaves, but in mayor's races and in congressional districts. But this is a statewide race in Michigan. But here's the even more important part, Andrew. The Democratic National Committee, the DNC, just added Michigan to its list of early primary states to help choose its next nominee for president of the United States. Meaning, when El-Sayed wins and becomes the Democratic nominee, he has already made it very clear that he intends to use that position to leverage the leading candidates for president of the United States on the Democratic side, who will all want to be coming through Michigan to avow or disavow, hopefully in his case, I think he wants him to avow this socialist agenda. So you think about it, the Pete Buttigieg, the Gavin Newsoms, the Kamala Harrises, they're all going to want to campaign in Michigan this November because they want to get a head start on the primary for next year when Michigan's going to play a role. So that means they have to stand next to and alongside El-Sayed and talk about this far-left extreme agenda, which, by the way, includes things like abolishing the President of the United States, abolishing the United States Senate, packing the United States Supreme Court, getting rid of the ICE agency, defunding police. So, you know, for anyone who considers himself a normal Democrat, they are going to get dragged to the extreme crazy left.
Now, this El-Sayed says, no, I'm not a socialist. I'm not associated with the Democratic Socialists. You know, no. Although he did raise money for them, right? He was at fundraisers for them. He's been backed by them. What do you think is his real agenda here? Is it that socialist? Is it that hard anti-Israel line? Is he as benign as he's trying to make himself out to be?
No. Let's just be clear. He's trying to win. And so he was very proud of the label during the early parts of the primary when it was where the enthusiasm and the base of the Democratic Party was. and that is likely what's going to propel him to victory. Now, just to be clear, then he has to pivot to the center. So what he's doing now is recognizing that he's probably up double digits over his primary opponent. He's going to win. He will be the nominee. And he's already starting to tack back towards at least less of the crazy center. So it's not that he's disavowing all of it, but he understands that the label is not helpful in Michigan, which I think is a blue-leaning state. It's not blue, but it's definitely not red. And I think he's trying to salvage that because there are Democrats in Michigan right now, elected members of Congress, that are saying he's too extreme for them. So he's trying to soften his position ahead of the general election to try to be able to make this race against Mike Rogers, the Republican nominee, more competitive. So that's simply what he's doing. He's not disavowing the agenda. He just recognizes the brand sucks.
Well, sucks just in a one-on-one race, but once he gets into Washington, if he does, my goodness, there's a few of them there now, Democrats,
well, Andrew,
socialists or socialists adjacent.
Yes, but also El Said has also started to talk about the fact that when he gets to Washington, I don't think he will, but he is saying that he's going to take on other Democrats like John Fetterman of Pennsylvania and back primary opponents to them. So the Democratic establishment, I think, is rightly scared. They allowed this to grow and to fester, and they suddenly realized that the Frankenstein that they created in the lab is actually going to walk and talk on its own. It's almost like the AI computers that can now think on their own.
Well, talking about Frankensteins and AI computers that can think on their own, great analogy. The mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani, I mean, he's, of course, the first of these guys, and one is now the mayor. He's worked out one of the problems with socialism, like, golly gosh, who saw this coming, or in this case, it's a communist initiative. Now, you and I, we've discussed before, these new government-controlled supermarkets, which are meant to sell food at very cheap, government-set prices, obviously subsidised by taxpayers. Now, he said to insist that shoppers show their ID to prove they are locals to stop others coming in to snap up the bargains. Here he is.
This is a program for New Yorkers to be able to put food on the table, not a program for people to be able to make a quick buck through reselling.
Sean Spicer, what does that tell you?
Well, it is funny, right? So they're going to create these stores, 5 of them, mark prices down 30% from, which is, again, you're screwing all of these bodegas. If you ever go through New York City, you'll see these bodegas that are like little corner supermarkets. And these are family owned for the most part, sometimes generations. Most of them don't have a very high profit margin. So now you're going to compete with those folks, knock them out of business. They're already probably struggling to pay rent, to pay their employees, to stay afloat. And now what are you doing? You're trying to figure out how do you prevent people from New Jersey and other places in New York from coming in and buying up all the supply because it's going to be marked down 30% less. And what's their response? Well, we're going to require a photo ID, the same photo ID that the Democrats writ large are saying that should never be used to be a means to test whether someone can vote. But now you're going to use it to figure out whether they can buy food at 30% off. There's so many places to go with this, Andrew. I mean, it is just an abject policy failure. It's going to hurt so many New Yorkers, and then it's unbelievably hypocritical at the same time.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The argument against using photo ID, IDs to vote is, oh, the poor don't have the IDs. These shops are meant to help the poor. So they do have IDs to actually survive, eat to survive, but they don't need it to vote. There's something odd there. Just quickly, Sean, Gianni Infantino, the head of FIFA, the world's top soccer body, he's reportedly been trying to ring Donald Trump to get the president to help save his job because European soccer bodies are moving to sack the guy. Now, Infantino's, of course, the man that the president rang to get cancelled a red card given to an American player at the World Cup. And then Infantino tried to plan to sell a stake in future World Cup profits to private investors, including the brother of Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, which would have put Infantino in line for a salary of $40 million Australian a year, but that's by the by, I'm sure. There are denials of this story by the White House, and follow-up reports that Trump left Infantino to ring Secretary of State Marco Rubio instead. That call did not go ahead. Does any of this sound right to you?
Well, look, both sides are denying that the call was ever scheduled to take place. But I got to tell you, FIFA and scandal, that goes hand in hand. So there's nothing that shocks me when it comes to this. I just think they had to, but you want to talk, I mean, if you have Zoran Mandami on one end trying to figure out how to subsidize New York's food prices and go in the socialist direction, I think he might have gone a little too far on the capitalist side trying to sell off stakes in FIFA. But as I said, nothing shocks me when it comes to scandal and FIFA.
That is a beautifully put bookend there, Sean Spicer. Thank you very much for your time.
You bet. See you soon.
After the break, former Liberal Treasurer Joe Hockey plays the race card to defend the controversial son of a Chinese billionaire who gave Anthony Albanese a mystery donation. Joe Hockey should be ashamed of himself. The former Treasurer playing the racism card in the papers today. Yeah, I'm so tired of this stuff. Hockey is now doing work which is well paid, I'm sure, for young Felix Lee, with Hockey now chairman of the Lee Family Office. And Lee, of course, had the Prime Minister over to his Sydney mansion the other day, where Anthony Albanese was given a donation variously reported as being between $100,000 and $1 million. Not that Albanese wanted to talk about that or even admit he was there.
Did you attend a dinner at the home of Felix Lee in Point Piper?
Oh, look, I attend lots of functions.
What about this one?
I attend lots of functions in lots of places, including last night right here.
What about this dinner at Point Piper?
I attend lots of functions in lots of places. Why don't you want to answer that?
Shifty. Now, Felix was actually the son of Chinese billionaire and property developer Philip Dongfang Lee, who's had a huge brawl with the tax office over $250 million of allegedly unpaid taxes. The tax office accused him of repeatedly deceiving our authorities to pour billions from China into Australian bank accounts and mansions and putting huge money through casinos, leading to reports of suspicions of money laundering. I should stress, of course, the father denies any wrongdoing and the dispute has since been settled. But Hockey's reaction, remember, he does work for the Lee family, is to say, every rich person gets chased by the tax office, no biggie. And as for young Felix, reporters asking questions about all this seem to be racist. Hockey says, just be very careful about racism here. He's Australian-born, Australian citizen. His family made money out of infrastructure in China, so what? I'm worried that there's a sort of racism that's driving things, and that's really regrettable. Joining me, Amir Schlicht, the Executive Director of the Samuel Griffith Society, and Michael Danby, former federal Labor politician and former chairman of the Joint Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade. Michael, Hockey playing the race card to defend his client from reporters wondering what this huge donation to Labor was really for. Your response?
Well, Joe's very personal, but I wondered how he convinced the Prime Minister to go over to this young bloke's place, even though it's $40 million. And of course, Albo and Hockey go back a long way to their 98 parliamentary delegation to meet Yasser Arafat. So they've been friends all the way through, even though on the other side of politics. But it's not racist to question whether the AFP is investigating this on behalf of the tax office and whether $270 million is owed. It's not racist to say whether it was a wise decision to go there, and it's certainly not racist to play David Spears in the ABC and wonder why he was so evasive and shifty about answering that question.
Very much so. Mia, I'm actually going to shift to the next topic because I want to give you some time. Give some time to this. Don't want to run out. Pauline Hanson last week lost her appeal against the judgment 2 years ago in the federal court that she'd racially vilified Greens Deputy Leader Mary Faruqi by telling her to piss off back to Pakistan if she was so down on Australia. This was after Faruqi responded to the death of the Queen by saying, "I cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire built on stolen lives, land and wealth of colonised peoples." Mia, your Samuel Griffith Society has now done a report on that judgment. What did it find?
Well, what we found, Andrew, is that Section 18C is a terrible, terrible law, and any political party here in this country who is seriously committed to freedom of speech and understands why freedom of speech is so important in holding up a liberal democracy should be committed to repealing this law. If we get to the crux of the issue of what happened here, we had one senator on the left who made a comment that many Australians might find offensive, and then we had a senator on the right who also responded by making a comment that many Australians might find offensive. But the difference is it was only the senator on the right here who now owes millions of dollars to be sorry for that claim. And the issue with this law, Andrew, is that it is entirely subjective, because offence is subjective. What one person might find offensive, another person wouldn't, and ultimately the person or the people who get to make a decision about whether something should or shouldn't be said, or whether Australians are free to hear something or not, are judges, who are, of course, entirely unaccountable. If judges make decisions about what Australians are able to say and what they can't say, if Australians don't agree with that judgment, there's very, very little that we can do. Of course, we've got parliamentarians that we disagree with all the time, but we are afforded the opportunity to vote them out. If a judge makes the decisions that Australians don't agree with, we can't vote them out. So that's why this law is particularly concerning, because the whole judgment rests on a subjective opinion. And even worse than that, it goes further, because nobody actually needs to be offended by what was said. It's just up to a judge to decide whether a hypothetical person might reasonably be offended by a statement.
It's so weird. Michael, what it's led to, I think, now, and I'm seeing that, I must say, without saying too much, from a certain segment of the community at the moment, a weaponisation of hurt feelings. So if you've got broad shoulders, you get nothing, and you tolerate debate. But if you want to weaponise your hurt feelings and go, woe is me, I'm offended, you can really punish people with the help of a sympathetic judge.
Well, I think Mia's got a good point. Insult and offend, which are part of 18C, I think now, after years of seeing how it operates, are drawn too widely. And it leaves too much discretion to judges. And I think you can see in Victoria and federally, letting people march across the bridge against the advice of the police, the judges are actually more liberal than some of the authorities would like them to be. And I think they should be more literal, more black and white.
Mia, Albanese's silence about the ABC's gross abuse of Gina Rinehart, I think it's terrible, but it's not the worst example of his sexism double standards. Last May, Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi gave Albanese the gift of a crown melon. It's a prize gift, one tree, one fruit. So prized is presented to the emperor as well. But Albanese turned it into a dirty joke to impress a pretty young blogger, Nikki Osborne, a joke so puerile that it's best seen with the Benny Hill soundtrack that we've added. Have a look.
The Japanese Prime Minister brought a melon. Got a couple of melons. Got a couple of melons. She brought two, as you do.
I said last month this smutty insult will not go unnoticed in Japan. Now the Japan Times published an article by journalist Waka Akeda saying a woman may run the world's fourth largest economy, stare down Beijing's threats and still be reduced by an allied Prime Minister to two melons on a podcast. The joke was beneath him and beneath Australia. How do you explain Albanese's gross insult?
I don't think there is any explanation here, Andrew. It was gross, it was cheap, and completely below the standards that we Australians expect of our Prime Minister. I will say I do not want to be lectured on sexism by Albanese ever again, or any of the Labor ministers, particularly the Labor women, who have remained completely silent on this issue. There has not been a single remark from any of them. We've even had Jacinta Rallan here in Victoria last week, when she was stepping down, was playing the gender card, saying she doesn't want young women to be deterred by her being rolled in the Victorian Labor Party. Yet she made no comment for how young women in this country might feel as they've got their Prime Minister making crude jokes about this, a very serious woman who in Japan has gone leaps and miles to achieve better outcome for women in that country, along with a whole other accomplishments in the policy suite, yet all of these Labor women said nothing, yet they're the first to jump on any criticism of a Conservative politician who makes a comment even related to women, whether it's sexist or not. They'll turn it into a sexist remark. Yet on this, they all remain completely silent.
Including Foreign Minister Penny Wong, Michael.
Yes, so we've got a smutty Prime Minister you quite rightly mock as a sort of Australian Benny Hill. Shameful. Japan is a serious country, and if you look seriously at our foreign policy, you'd see Wong and the whole gang of them particularly underplay the seriousness of Japan and overplay their allegiance or obeisance to China. So when the Japanese Prime Minister came here, I thought her visit was seriously underdone, and this Benny Hill Prime Minister really makes it worse. It's so shameful that the Japanese, who are such serious people, would see this kind of rubbish and think that that's the views of Australians.
Mia, I've run out of time, but I've just got to ask you quickly. It seems to me that the government now, Labor government, has a real crisis about sexism, double standards. Gina Reinhart and this, what is going on?
Yes, I agree, Andrew, and I think it just shows that they often use the sexism card as a weapon in their political tool belt. They're not actually serious about stamping out sexism in this country, because if they were, they would have condemned this behaviour from the Prime Minister. But the fact the Prime Minister has apologised for the comments he made about Kylie Minogue and not apologised for these comments, I think just speaks volumes.
Mia Schlicht, Michael Danby, thank you very much to you both. It just shows really to me that sexism, fighting against sexism for Labor is a weapon, it's not a principle. The side comes first. After the break, the amazing scandals of Cambridge's youngest ever black professor. How on earth did he get away with it for so long? Jason Arday is, or maybe was, the star of Cambridge, one of Britain's two most famous universities, of course. He was the youngest black professor in his history. It's diversity poster boy, and what a story of triumph over adversity.
Wouldn't it be the most ridiculous story ever told if the boy who couldn't read and write at 18 gets a PhD before he's 30?
But if that sounded a little bit too good to be true, well, this sociology professor, now 41, has been accused of plagiarism, which he denies, accused of copying nearly verbatim in his doctoral thesis more than 100 passages just from one other academic's work. His defenders immediately did, a Joe Hockey and claimed he was the victim of racism.
A baseless smear campaign against a distinguished black academic isn't just a personal attack. It's an attempt to shut down a black person who has a platform, and they keep doing this again and again.
Yeah. And Cambridge University even dismissed the plagiarism allegations, brush them aside. But then other claims Arday made on investigation turned out to be completely false, like running 600 miles in 6 days, or like appearing on a famous TV show, 7 Up.
I was part of a program, actually, which it doesn't really exist anymore, but it was called 7 Up at the time. And 7 Up is basically when they follow you over the duration of your life. So they follow you at kind of 7, 14, 21. And I was pulled out of the project when I was 14.
Small problem. 7 Up was first filmed 21 years before Arday was even born. He'd also lied about fundraising he'd done, about foreign aid work he'd supposedly done, about a visiting professorship he'd never had, and on and on. Joining me from London is Talk TV host Samara Gill. Samara, great to see you, but what an amazing story. And the question is, how did he get away with it for so long?
Goodness me, Andrew, I never want to get on your bad side. You've got the receipts. I mean, genuinely, it's so interesting, isn't it, how Professor Arday literally lied his way to the top, it seems. Now, look, he claims what I am not is a liar, and he also says that he is obviously the target of a politically and racially motivated campaign, as you played out there. But, this shouldn't be a culture war story, and this is exactly what it's become. The question is whether Professor Arday black, autistic, supporter of DEI. The question is whether he actually is supporting those academic standards and whether they apply to everyone. So if there are allegations of plagiarism, then they should investigate them. If they're unfounded, then clear his name. And most universities, they start treating the scrutiny as taboo because of someone's identity. And that actually undermines public confidence in academia. And that's where the issues start to lie. I mean, I think to myself of Claudine Gay. If anyone remembers, she was the Harvard president. She was a black woman. She had multiple allegations of plagiarism on multiple academic works. And she again pulled this race card saying that it was a witch hunt against her. Well, unfortunately, the plagiarism that was found to be true doesn't lie. And this is the problem here. You know, universities, they don't protect their reputation by avoiding difficult questions. They should protect it by answering them. And equal opportunities actually means equal scrutiny, Andrew. But some people haven't got the memo on that.
That's so true. But, you know, it's interesting you say correctly it shouldn't be a political issue. I think it is the case that it is. It's not that it's being attacked because it's a diversity pick. I think it's being defended because he's a diversity pick. He's had so many defenders, especially when this story first broke. You know, they wanted to preserve this story. What's happening with him now?
I mean, what's happening with him now is that I believe he's fighting the case. He is claiming that it is some sort of targeted thing. There are also claims about harassment, including he's saying that a pig's head was delivered to his parents' home. That's also come under scrutiny. The police say they couldn't find any records of that to that account. From what I know, he maintains his version of events. But I think that he is kind of going for now this guy called Nathan Kofnas, and he's alleging that Nathan has an interesting past and that Nathan, who is leading the charge against this, does have some sort of racial element to him and to what he's saying about him.
Yeah, well, I wonder what this says about race politics in Britain, though, that this has become such a cause célèbre with as you suggested, the facts don't seem to matter anymore. It's really what side are you on, you know, on the black guy's side or are you against the black guy? It's like that. What does it say about race politics then?
It says that it is actually dividing the country instead of uniting it. You know, this is not fair on black professors who have done all that they've done and got to the top by merit. He's actually ruining it for the rest of everyone else. And unfortunately, policies like DEI, in my view, actually totally do the opposite of what they would put into place to do. They make people resentful about those who get promoted. They make people think, oh, why they're only in that position because of their skin color or their or because of their gender. And for a lot of the case, that's not true. So that is, I think, the issue here. And unfortunately, Britain is well in the wokeification of its academic institutions, of its civil servants, of its civil service. Just last year, we spent $60 million on DEI in the civil service. So this issue is not going away, unfortunately, Andrew.
What an amazing amount. Is that the case? Honestly, this whole race business is such an industry now. Samara Gill, always great to talk to you, and thank you so much. I mean, Samara is absolutely correct. It's such an insult to other black academics. You think of Thomas Sowell, the great Thomas Sowell, right? Tremendous. He would never have needed all this stuff. He would never have needed that defending. His genius just shone. So there you go. Well, that's it from me. Coming up next is Sharry Markson. But for me, for now, good night.